So I'd now like to throw to a second video that John recorded for us, where he will announce the first Health Consumers Queensland Consumer-Led Award winner.
CD's additional sponsorship funding has also allowed for the inclusion of Health Consumers Queensland's first ever Consumer Awards. These awards are an opportunity to celebrate examples of excellence in consumer engagement. Firstly, let me congratulate yesterday's winners of the Partnership Award, Carolyn Wharton and Suzanne Michaels from Caboolture and Kilcoy Hospitals, for their great partnership to collaborate and create change that's led to much better health outcomes. Well done. It's now my pleasure to announce the winner of the Consumer-Led Award category. This category recognises health consumers and carers who demonstrate drive, growth and commitment to partnering with a health service to really improve health outcomes for Queenslanders. So this award goes to, and I want to recognise the contribution of Sue Swinburne, mother of a transgender daughter, for her great advocacy and participation in engagement activities, which has really led to much greater access to consumers for gender diverse and questioning children and their families. As a parent, Sue's provided support to other parents, online, over the phone, and setting up a peer support group. She's spoken publicly at health and education conferences and in the media, and been an active advocate to politicians and government departments around the issues and the need for improved education and health for gender diverse and questioning kids and their families. Sue has co-designed, publicised and participated in these engagement activities with young people, with other parents and staff within the Lady Cilento Children's Hospital Gender Clinic and the statewide service. Sue's also a member of the Children's Health Queensland's Diversity and Inclusion Working Committee. I would now like to invite Sue to the stage to share her family's journey and her work that has gained her this award and recognition. By integrating families into the improved design and delivery and evaluation of those services, co-design has led to greater access and better health wellbeing outcomes for young people. Sue will be joined during her presentation by Dallas Pitt, psychologist with the Gender Clinic, to describe the co-design activities and impact. Please welcome Sue.
As Sue and Dallas come to the stage, I'd also like to acknowledge Sue's family, who are here in the audience, Paul, Noah and Annabelle herself. And I'd also like to acknowledge staff from within the LCCH Gender Clinic, Stephen Stathis, Olivia Donaghy, and also, I believe, Fiona Dugan, the Chief Executive. Golly. Oh, hi. That's all right. I've just been focused on getting this far, but of course there's all of you here as well. That's super awkward. Okay, so I just have to give you a little heads up. I'm a crier, and in fact I cry so much that I cry. You know the safety video when you get onto Qantas planes, and they're all like, oh, and here's a beautiful land, don't forget to buckle up. I cry at safety videos, so that's just, if I cry today, it's not because our life in any way is difficult or sad in any way. It's just I'm a crier. So yeah, heads up on that. So it's not without a degree of embarrassment that I. Oops! Wow, how did we get there? We need to go back. Oh well, there's good. Okay, so it's not without a degree of embarrassment that I'd like to thank Health Consumers Queensland for this amazing award. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of families, and many of them here, who are working for our community's wellbeing, and it's great that this award exists now to honour and to recognise all of that passion and hard work and positive change. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Turrbal and Jagera people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to pay my respects more widely to transgender Indigenous people, brother boys and sister girls, and extend that respect and gratitude to all trans and gender diverse people who are living their truth. Oh, this is a little cry bit. It's a little cry bit and I'm back. So the visibility and advocacy of trans people make it possible for my family to enjoy the privileges of safety, security and access to health services that we have today, so I'm super grateful. I'd also like to say hi to my family. Oh my God, there's another crying bit. It's my husband Paul, who's an ACE dad and who's a facilitator of the parent support group that's run with the Gender Clinic. As a British expat, he's way more polite than I am, and he's an excellent role model for me in that regard, which is balanced by my son Noah, who shows a wonderful indifference to the opinion of others, which is also super handy sometimes. So I'd like to start my talk today. Today I'm talking about the vital role I think that allies have played in our families' lives in helping to create positive change. But to give you a sense of how our family got to where we are today, I'll start back at the beginning. So this is our daughter 11 and a half years ago. She's a standard baby, very curious about the world, quiet and easygoing. She was assigned male at birth, which is a way of saying that we thought that this child was our second son. So they said, press green button. Oh, green button works. So we continued to think that this child was our son, even though when she was able to dress herself, she'd raid my wardrobe for the kind of clothes that she enjoyed wearing. Anything that she could make kind of like a dress. Her play and the characters from stories that she would role model in her play were stereotypically feminine, but we were happy for her to dress and play how she wanted. Ooh, green button. As she got older, however, she became increasingly aware that more broadly, society frowned on how she wanted to live in the world. She would ask me how we could stop people staring at her when we were out, wanting to know why some people laughed at her. She started to get sad. She was an introverted kid, she kind of still is, but her personality at that point became more and more anxious. When she began kindergarten, she gradually began to express her gender in ways that I guess were more stereotypically masculine. Alongside that though, other things started to happen. Little things like she found it really, really difficult to answer the question, what do you want for your birthday? She found it very difficult to make eye contact with people outside of her immediate family, and she became less talkative and much less confident. Oh, there's the phone. Hopefully not mine. She became increasingly conscious of how she presented outside the house and checking with me when we were going anywhere, who would be there. And if she couldn't feel kind of reassured that she wouldn't encounter any negativity, she would choose to wear boy clothes. By the time primary school started, she'd pretty much given up wearing her old clothes. But at the same time, she withdrew into herself. She became acutely shy, but would have bouts of sometimes violent rage at home, as her brother and dad and I can attest. She suffered from social anxiety and started refusing to go to school. So this all happened gradually over a number of years. When it got really hard to get her to go to school, my husband Paul and I took her to see a child psychologist. And ostensibly at that time it was to work on school refusal because she had stopped expressing her gender in non-conforming ways and it was not an issue she ever spoke of. But after 2 years of work with the psychologist, Annabelle was eventually able to talk to us about her sense of self, and that she is, in fact, a transgender girl. So Paul and I started to look for information about what this meant for our daughter. In our initial research, we discovered that being transgender carries with it some statistically dire outcomes. So this is an Australian study that was conducted last year. It surveyed 859 young people between the ages of 14 and 25, as well as 194 parents of gender diverse young people. And so this is what the researchers found, and this is the kind of information that we first encountered. We found that as a trans child, our daughter had a nearly 50% chance of taking her own life, that she had an almost 80% chance of harming herself, and that she would experience discrimination at school, at university, and that she was at greater risk of homelessness. So as parents, this was the question that we asked, except with a lot more WTF and exclamation marks, very frightened exclamation marks around this question. And I guess this became kind of the focus of our research. Obviously, you know, you read those kinds of predictions for your child as you want to do something about it. So what we quickly discovered was that our daughter's well-being, as is the case for transgender people generally, was actually pretty straightforward. First and foremost, what she needed was for her whole community to understand her, to respect her, and to acknowledge her as who she is. So, and I guess that's kind of, it's an unusual health scenario. You know, mostly you need to find care for your child, the specialist clinical care, and we did need that. But actually what we needed for her first and foremost was for her to feel validated so that she didn't kind of become one of those horrendous statistics that we'd read. So the well-being of transgender children and young people relies on great clinicians, but it also relies, as I said, on a whole community. So what I've compiled for you on the next slide is a list of people that I've dealt with directly or indirectly since our daughter came out to us, either for her welfare or as we started to then work to improve the well-being of trans children more generally. And so this is a weird list for how you ensure that somebody stays healthy, but these are all of the people who, upon whom our daughter's well-being relied. I put parents on there first because Paul and I are the most significant protective factor for Annabelle. But Paul and I actually had to do quite a lot of work ourselves so that we had the knowledge, we had confidence, and the capacity to care and advocate for our child. And it took actual work, it took emotional work, it took intellectual work, psychological work on ourselves to make sure that we could care for Annabelle as she needed us to. But that work that we did was also to prepare us to encourage and to help other people to do almost exactly the same work, to help each of the people on this list to process their own feelings, to learn, to grow, and to be their best selves when it came to supporting and caring for transgender children. As well as the folk that I've dealt with, some of the people on this list are also from peer support that I've done in secret Facebook groups. And some of these people also come from my own workplace where I'm part of a working group to improve how my employer is provides a safe, understanding and respectful space for trans people. But the list goes on. And I'm going to quickly run through a couple of the people on this list to give you a sense of how each of these people also impact my daughter's health and well-being. So for example, the mayor in our former local council, Scenic Rim, represent, raised the rainbow flag outside council chambers in Bow Desert, known as a hotbed of liberalism, for International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. So this is a really simple and very powerful way to tell LGBTIQ people that they are seen, that they are respected in their community. Oh, Qantas moment. Huh. Respected in their community by people in positions of authority. Conversely, in our former state electorate, Cynic Rim not so representing, the local MP wrote an alarmist article for the local paper during the Safe Schools debate, contributing to the spread of misinformation, fear-mongering about gender-diverse children, particularly gender-diverse children in the school system. Paul and I subsequently spent 90 minutes with Paul being super polite, explaining to our local MP how and why this was not only misleading, but it put our daughter at risk. So the list goes on, and each person or institution on this list has the means to make a transgender person's life better or worse, to improve their well-being or to undermine it. As parents and as advocates, we need to look for our allies in each of these places and to work with them to create positive change. Yay! So what does it look like when things go well? The primary school where Annabelle transitioned, Tambury Mountain State School, is a great example of that. When we first met with them about Annabelle being transgender, the school listened to us, and they made it clear that they would support us and our daughter. And you know, they, like us, had, at that point in our lives, had very little knowledge about what all of this meant. But they made arrangements for Safe Schools, which existed at the time, to deliver professional development to the whole school, from the teachers to the librarian to the tuck shop volunteers and the groundskeeper. The staff then worked with our family to help plan for Annabelle's transition at school, to make sure that her peers were able to respond to her transition with respect, warmth and understanding. The school became our genuine partners in the well-being for our daughter. They did this by growing, by learning, and by leading the school and the school community in a strengthened commitment to diversity and inclusivity. This commitment was formalised in this policy, which explicitly frames for the school community how gender diverse children are welcome, respected, and are safe at Tambury Mountain State School. This is a wonderful document and painfully rare, and has been shared around the state and the country as an example for others to draw from. Another place that understands how to partner with families is the gender clinic at the Lady Cilento Children's Hospital. Annabelle needs expert clinical care as she approaches adolescence. Dr. Stephen Stathis, Olivia Donaghy, Dallas Pitt, and the whole team have worked with a genuine, heartfelt, and unwavering commitment to genuinely and authentically engage with kids, parents, and the community. They're an absolute godsend, not just because they exist, which is also something of a miracle, at Stephen's hand, to be fair, but because of how they live the values of shared understanding, inclusivity, and community in their work. And so, oh gosh, this is what a transgender kid looks like when they have a loving and supportive family, an excellent cake, and a respectful and caring community, a great school, and now that the gender clinic at the Lady Cilento has been formally funded by the Queensland Government, when they have access to appropriate, expert and timely healthcare. Also, that cake was my crowning glory as a parent. I peaked early. But this support for her was relatively easy to provide. I have a loving and supportive spouse. We're heterosexual, middle class. We live close to a metropolitan area. We're white. English is our first language. We're able-bodied, neurotypical. And we have access to education and resources. We have won the privilege lottery. But what happens to those kids whose parents don't have the same privileges, capacities, or resources that we have? This quote that I've got up there today is from an article published recently by some Canadian clinicians. That is not easy to say, and bless you to whoever that person was. So young people need the support of their parents, first and foremost. Otherwise, that's the point at which they become at great risk. So the parents group that we run with the Lady Cilento Children's Hospital is one way to help improve the lives of transgender children and young people by supporting their parents to do well, to access the services they need, and to be their best selves in the care and the support of their kids. As I've discovered, and the Gender Clinic also knows, schools, health services, and government bureaucracies don't always understand gender diversity, nor do they always understand their obligations under the anti-discrimination legislation. So it's important that we have the parents group to share information, to model strategic and well-informed advocacy for one another, and to give support and advice to navigate the complexities of the current landscape we find ourselves in. So in this environment, this is what parents need according to Canadian clinicians, Newhawk, Winters et al. Parents need education, they need support from peers and the organisations they encounter. They need their schools to step up and to show leadership, courage and vision. And for those parents of prepubescent kids, services should be designed to meet the support and care needs of parents. But what about kids whose parents, in spite of education, don't support them? As I said at the outset, transgender kids are put at risk when they don't have supportive family around them. It's absolutely vital, therefore, that we urgently consider the rights and well-being of trans children whose parents do not and will not support them, as well as how transgender children are supported and cared for in the child safety system. Oh, doink. That one. Just to finish up, there's one more person that I need to acknowledge. Oh, this isn't going to be a massive Qantas moment. Oh, gosh, this person is, oh, golly, I may not get through this. This is Paul and my greatest ally. Our daughter, Annabelle, is a patient, thoughtful, compassionate, and hilarious companion. She teaches us daily about resilience, generosity, wisdom, and good humour in the face of ignorance, adversity, and challenge. I'm very grateful for the opportunity she's given us to understand the world and ourselves. Oh, gosh, Qantas, so happening right now. She's given us the opportunity to understand the world and ourselves in a new, more thoughtful and much kinder way. I thank her for giving us the motivation and the clarity to do the work that we do to support the well-being of transgender children in our communities. I'm sorry to pass over to you like when I'm crying. That is just like a terrible segue. But I am going to now hand over to Dallas, who's going to describe the development of the Gender Clinic, the recent co-design that we've been involved in, and how the clinic works for kids and families. Thank you very much.
So as you can see, I guess, from Sue's speech, why we wanted her so involved within the Gender Clinic. And the Gender Clinic has very much from the foundations being consumer and carer-led. And then we also have an ongoing commitment to be involving consumers and carers. So as Sue was saying, this current financial year was the first time that we actually received funding for the clinic, and we were able to actually build a team, which is made up of a child and adolescent psychiatrist, paediatric endocrinologist, a bunch of mental health workers. So the Lady Cilento Children's Hospital Gender Clinic, or I'll just say Gender Clinic because that's too much of a mouthful, is very much based on a gender affirmative model of care. So the goals within this model are really about listening to the child and with the help of their parents, being able to understand what the child is trying to communicate about their gender identity and also their gender expression, and to help and support them to feel comfortable and confident within this identity. We also like to explore what gender means to them and to the world around them, and also to help reduce the extent of preoccupation with their gender. Based on clear information, clinical guidelines and research literature from around the world, we do this. And we also treat and or collaborate with primary mental health treatment teams to address comorbid mental health difficulties and to help monitor risk. For those of the children and young people who do meet clinical guidelines, we can provide medical assessment and treatment for stages 1 and 2, which is your puberty suppression and gender-affirming hormones. So right back prior to the establishment of the clinic actually being underway, there was a 3-month consumer and carer consultation process that occurred. So we were lucky enough to have leadership that really saw the importance of having consumers and carers involved in this. And so for 3 months, which was led by a trans community development worker, we ran 3 different focus groups, which involved 20 parents and 14 young people. So with this, it was really, the aim of it was to get their perspectives of the future model of service, to determine what key resources were required, and to directly influence the development of content for future consumers and carers. And so from these focus groups, it helped inform the model of service for the clinic. The need for a parent support group was identified. It also identified the need for online resources. It highlighted consumer anxiety about what to expect when first attending the clinic. It highlighted the need for fact sheets around gender dysphoria and medication, and also the images that we use throughout the fact sheets and any promotional material was decided upon by consumers. So this is the parents group that we run. So it's actually run by Paul, Sue's husband. He leads the group, and it's supported by key NGOs within this field, and also ourselves at the clinic. It's been running since September last year and runs bi-monthly, and it's been having great attendance. And it's also, I guess, the parents have decided to build a Facebook group as well so that they could connect outside of the group. We also, because it's run here in Brisbane, we didn't just want to help and support the carers of Brisbane trans young people. So we've been able to develop video and phone-in options because it is a statewide service. So we're able to have carers from around the state link into these groups. So we also have a website. It can be found just Googling LCCH Gender Clinic. That's usually the easiest way. And it will be our hub for any fact sheets that we develop. So there's a couple up there already. And it also features a video that we developed to help with that consumer anxiety about what to expect when first attending. So we decided on a video format basically because there's a high proportion of our young people with ASD and speech and language difficulties, and so we thought it was the best medium to be able to communicate with them. So we really needed, I guess, with the video to balance between managing consumer visibility and also involvement, given the context of threats to personal and emotional safety. So other health clinics have received hateful targeting of gender diverse children and young people. So within this video and also another project that I'll talk about later on, it doesn't contain images or the vocals of our consumers. However, it does directly contain the words from consumers. So the cartoons that you see, the voices, they are direct words from the focus groups right back at the beginning of the clinic. So just because of time, we'll just show a small segment from the video.
So when our daughter started talking to us about being trans, my first response actually was relief, because I had seen, for so many years that there was something that she was struggling with, and it was never really clear to me what that was. And so my husband and I were trying to work out for a really long time how it was that we could help her to, come to some place of peace with what it was that was troubling her. So when she talked to us about her sense of self and her gender identity, it was actually such a relief to go, oh gosh, is that it? Okay, that's fine.
Being able to have their friends and family use the correct name and also the correct pronouns, that can play a major part in just affirming someone's identity.
The support from friends and family that means the most is when they are understanding and have respect for my pronouns and name.
They don't necessarily have to understand, but just to accept.
Young people whose families are really affirming of their identity are growing up to have full and wonderful lives with the same or better outcomes in terms of mental health or educational attainment or jobs or whatever the case may be. So we really are confident that working really in a really connected, joined up way with families and local care systems is the right pathway in terms of ensuring the best possible outcomes or optimum development for that young person.
So these are little snippets from the fact sheets that we've developed and are currently in the process of finalising around the medication fact sheets. So these images were again decided upon from our consumers at the very beginning of our focus groups. So they'll contain information about the medication risks and I guess all of that sort of information, and they will be available on the website as well. So we also have the Your Story project. So this is about an opportunity for our consumers to be able to share their stories with other consumers. We currently have a handful of them at the moment, and we're wanting a few more before we actually place them onto our website. Again, they will be de-identified to help protect the safety of our consumers. We also have the Consumer Quarterly Forum that's underway. So this is about an ongoing opportunity to get direct feedback from our consumers. They will be leading and driving community events such as Wear It Purple Day and Pride, and they're directly involved in creating the material for these community events. And I guess we're not just about having this consumer and care involvement right back from the beginning. We want it ongoingly throughout the life of the clinic. So as was mentioned in the beginning, Sue is a carer representative of the Child Health Queensland's Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. She was also asked recently to present to the board. We also have the annual Experiences of Service survey, which is both done for carers and consumers. We also had consumers contribute interview questions for all of the current staff in the clinic, and whenever possible, we also had them involved in the interview panel for the staff. Consumers will also be contributing to resource development that's underway shortly for training that we'll be doing by the Gender Clinic. We also have the Family Fun Day that's being organised, and this is going to be an opportunity for families, their carers, consumers, and also their siblings to be able to get together and help normalise their experiences. We also have the Heroes Project. So this will be developed with the help of the Consumer Quarterly Forum, and it's all about aiming to promote the health and well-being of adult trans people, because we constantly hear from carers around their anxiety about their child's future and opportunities in life. So hopefully, I guess, from today's presentation, you can see how much we really value consumers and carers like Sue and her daughter, and hearing their voices and being able to feed that into our clinic on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks, Sue, and thanks, Dallas. We've got time for 2 questions from the floor, and we've got staff with roving mics, and I'm sure that you'll both be happy to hang around during morning tea. Do you have to take off? Morning tea's fine? All right, great. So if you don't get the chance to ask your question. Yep, we've got Helen down here, and one more after Helen. Let's see how we go. Oh, 2 questions. Go, Helen.
Look, the first one is, Sue, if you'd like to comment on what sort of grief and how you dealt with it around the loss of the son you thought you had.
Oh, you see, ironically, well, not ironically, I know that that's an experience that a lot of parents have. And I know that possibly, to an extent, that's possibly something Paul experienced slightly more than me. I didn't experience it at all. I was super, super happy, as I said in the video from Lady Salento, that I understood what had been distressing my child. And I was actually just really happy to have my child back, because I felt like she'd kind of been, becoming kind of submerged in feeling really unhappy. And so no, and it's difficult for me actually when I do peer support, because people speak about that grief quite a lot, and it's not something I can connect to at all. But yeah, no, I like her. She's good, and you know, she's at least as good, if not better, than she was before. So, result.
No other questions?
Thank you for the wonderful presentation and a very well-earned award. I've just got a question about how the experience for you of moving from being that situation yourself to supporting others, and just a comment about that journey. Because it's very inspiring as well.
Anyone in my family would tell you I'm super bossy. So, and it probably got 1 or 2 control issues. So, you know, when I go, oh, look, that's the solution for a problem, I'm like, oh, hey, everyone, I found some, not the solution, but there's definitely, I'm a bit of a doer. And so I guess it was pretty natural. And I guess, you know, when you're advocating to lots of different people in lots of different environments, whether they're clinical, educational, social, whatever, it just kind of felt like a progression of that because I guess a lot of the role that you're doing already is already kind of educating people or helping them to come to a kind of deeper awareness about what's going on. And you know, with gender diversity, because it is something that a lot of people who have no experience of it really struggle to understand, that just the gift of being able to talk under wet cement and being able to kind of explain to people, you know, what it is, what that's like as a parent, what the concerns are around for me as a parent, and how Paul and I invite people in to kind of help fix stuff. I guess that's probably what I do. But really, just my resting state is just being super bossy. So, yeah, that helps. Thank you. Well, now I get a... Yeah, sure. It's really lovely to win this award today. It's a wonderful honour, especially considering how many extraordinary people there are working so hard to ensure great outcomes for people in health. So yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing actually. Look, it was really lovely to have our family in the room today while I was getting this award. I think for our journey, it's something that we've all walked together. So having everybody here in the room while I'm getting the award, you know, it's great for them to be able to share in that, as they should. I think it's really important that health organisations partner with consumers because, you know, often the lived experiences that people are having outside of a clinical setting have a really huge impact on their health and well-being. So keeping consumers involved in the design and the delivery of services, I think is really critical.